Joining us now on Practical 365, it's Ingo. Hi, Ingo.
Hey, Steve. Thank
I,
you for having me.
I'm not going to attempt to pronounce your surname. So do you want to tell us your surname, a bit more about yourself and what you do?
Yeah, my name is Ingo Gegenwarth, and actually, I'm working for SAP, and I started there as an Exchange admin. And meanwhile, as we're all moving to M365, I'm also responsible. I took more responsibility in this area, so that means also as a global admin here. Yeah.
So
And
as well as that, you've been an MVP for a very long time, haven't you?
yeah, just quite a few years. Yeah, I think it's just 6 or 7 years right now, and
Yeah.
also I'm a master for Exchange 2010.
Yes.
Yeah.
And there's not many of those about, and unfortunately, it's one of those accreditations that nobody can get anymore. So,
No, sadly, it's done. Yeah, it's
but
over.
whilst an MVP means you share, what you know with other people, master. For those that haven't heard of Microsoft Certified Master or Microsoft Certified, is it Solutions Master was the newer term for it. What is a MCSM or an MCM on Exchange?
It's a Microsoft Certified Solution Master. That was the last one which was there available, and yeah, it's a dedicated training where you really get on hands in details. I mean, we're talking here about 3 weeks training on site in Seattle with brilliant teachers there, and it's quite a lot of work, but it was worth doing it. Yeah, and you still leverage from this knowledge.
Yes, and I think Paul Robershaw, who's not
Correct.
on
He
this part
was
of the
one of the
podcast,
trainers.
one of the
Yeah, Paul
trainers. Yes,
Robichaud.
yes,
Yeah.
Brian Reed as well. But so many folks that have went through that as well, who are also MVPs. But it's still a select bunch, and it's big kudos for that as well. And you also talk at a lot of conferences, especially when we're in person. And you're talking at Tech in a few weeks' time as well, aren't you?
Yes, I'm very pleased here about this.
And that's one of the things that we're going to talk about today, because there's not many folks out there who are running Exchange Online at scale. Obviously, Microsoft are, but there's a vast amount that happens, or you have to do when you're the admin, the Exchange SME, looking after it as well, and that's the focus of your topic itself. So, whilst we know SAP is pretty massive, going to talk a little bit in the general sense. What are the problems that you see in general when you're managing Exchange at scale and looking after that many mailboxes or that environment?
Yeah, it's pretty similar to what you get here for on-prem. Just to give you a brief overview. At the time we've been on-prem, we were running around 132 servers across multiple regions and almost 130,000 mailboxes. So even with this here on-prem, it was challenging, and you really have to look at some managing stuff and getting information and jobs done and tasks done there from a different angle. Now, with moving to Exchange Online, actually, it is pretty much the same. Yeah, it's just different kind of tools and different kind of techniques here. Well, actually, it's almost the same techniques, just the tools are changing. Just give you one example. Whereas on-prem, for retrieving data for Exchange, recipient objects, whatever it is in Exchange, it definitely was faster using just LDAP or ATSI, querying AD directly, and then doing the filtering, whatever you have to do, and then for modifying, updating items and objects using the Exchange management tool. When you're moving to Exchange Online, it's pretty much the same. So, but here instead of querying, for instance, AD, there is no AD, but yeah, there is Active Directory, Azure Active Directory, and for this, actually, you can use the Microsoft Graph. Also, we just mentioned this, Tony blogged about it, moving away from all the modules and to Microsoft Graph. Yeah, it's not always there. Everything is there, but for Exchange, when it comes to attributes and the things, but Graph, it's so cool in terms of it really scales.
Yeah.
You can run it at scale, and you can query from different workloads, like Teams information you can get from Azure information at the same endpoint. There, a few information from for Exchange.
And that, I think one of the things people might wonder is, well, we know that obviously there's some things you don't have to do, so you don't have to patch so many servers anymore. But as I think we all know, you have to patch some Exchange servers on-prem. But what are the key reasons why you're still needing to do a lot of reports on mailbox sizes or other things? What's the thing that's driving you to try and manage that? Is it not something you just say, well, it's Microsoft's problem now? They'll deal with it if somebody has an extremely large mailbox.
Yes, and no. Yeah, I would be happy if you could say, this is now outsourced, so this everything, Microsoft is on this right now. But even right now, it's all about getting data like analytics stuff. It's you want to get some information from your mailboxes, from your environment here. Still, you want to make sure that everything from configuration wise, that everything is fine. And when you run this at scale, you also have to make sure that AD Connect, it's pretty cool. It is really stable stuff. It is the sync between the on-prem Active Directory to Azure Active Directory, and then goes from Azure Active Directory to Exchange Online. But still, you have some limitations there, and there might be also sometimes problems, even the problem caused by you. But for this, then you have to find out and determine, do some analytics across a lot of recipient, a lot of objects. How can you do that? Yeah, I know the new admin portal for Exchange, big improvement. Microsoft is working on this. It is REST based. It has now more bulk options. There is more feature coming up, lighting up there as we move on. Yeah, we just have to wait a few months. But this is something they're working on, and this is also the reason why you would anyways do some analytic stuff here.
Yeah. So the new admin portal, it's faster, but it's not the fastest way of getting data out there. And so if you wanted to, if you're going to the new EAC and you were going in there hoping to be able to just get a big report for 150,000 users' mailboxes, then that's not the place that you'd start.
No.
This is where you'd be thinking, first of all, then the new Exchange Online version 2 PowerShell module as if you had to do something quick and dirty today and go in and get that information, is that the easiest way of getting some performance improvements versus some of the oldest modules, obviously, but the oldest supported modules?
Definitely, and I'm also going to speak about this here in the session at Tech 21. So please join here, and but this is definitely one of the huge and the massive improvement in performance what you can get when you look at. I mentioned this is only for retrieving data, not for modifying. But when you think about, when you step back about your daily work, it's most of the time you're retrieving data. The most data you're looking at is something for retrieving and then making sense out and then taking action on this, right?
Yeah, and this is where, and you'll see the article on the site. So I think it's coming out. If you're watching on the day we release the podcast this Friday, it's coming out on Monday. But if you're watching from Monday onwards, then you'll find out at the top of the site, Ingo's article on managing Exchange Online at scale. And this is where you're talking about the new set of commandlets. They're different commandlets. You need to update your scripts to use them. But these are, instead of effectively being Exchange Remote PowerShell, they are using the Graph API under the hood to retrieve data. Is that right?
Yep, that's correct. It's a dedicated platform. Everything is also REST-based. You're sending your request. They're doing the fan out there, and then getting all the data, consolidating them, and then you're retrieving the data. Yeah, that's true. You have to update your scripts because they have different names. And one important thing is they have also so-called property set, which is also something which improves the performance. If you query an object and you want to have all the attributes, there is more data which needs to be transferred over the wire, right? If you have only a subset of the attributes, less data, less latency, you get it faster.
And this is where I think this is the sort of key takeaway I think from the article. And well, I've not seen your tech session yet, obviously, but a good reason to attend it is actually it's like those are the kind of improvements that make a big difference. Even if it's 1,000 mailboxes or 500, and you're trying to retrieve data regularly and quickly, then those are pulling a lot of data back for all of the attributes, and then needing to sort through them and extract data from it, or filtering client side, it's still going to take a lot of time. And I think you point out that there's recommended ways of doing things for Microsoft, but then there's tweaking things where you'll get a better result. So server-side filtering, but this is where you found that going a bit deeper and hitting the graph directly is where you'll get those maximum benefits and a few more capabilities.
That's true, actually. Even one thing also to mention when you're just talking about server-side and client-side filtering, Microsoft mentioned this, and they currently they have really also an issue just for the new module and for the new cmdlets. When you use the filter, usually server-side filter is much faster and avoids throttling and a lot of other things there you have to struggle with. This is actually slower, but only in this module. If you do filtering and use Microsoft Graph, for instance, this is much faster. It's the same as like your on-prem Active Directory. You can get the data like this. It's really fast, but sometimes it's also a challenge. Not the filtering. If you have some special character, don't. Also, another really thing I really want to mention and highlight here: don't make it too complex. Simplicity. Simplify things, don't make a filter like this, because you will definitely miss one of the brackets somewhere and it will break here, and you have to scratch your hair.
It's like a long equation, I guess, isn't it, where you build this out and then actually you'll find that your complex query, you say, this isn't what I expected to get, right?
Yeah, that's.
And I think we've all been there, but then if you're using something new like Graph, then that's doubly doubly hard. And the fear I think a lot of people have is you use the Graph, especially if you're used to PowerShell, you're not going to get a beautiful XML object back that's in the same format. So have you found that that's hard to deal with, or is it as simple as
actually
the object?
Actually, PowerShell. That's why also I love PowerShell. It's I see it as an enabler, and I really encourage everyone to look into PowerShell, get speed up here on PowerShell, because it's the enabler. Why? Because you can do some queries with Microsoft Graph. You can have your own functions, whatever, just build your own profiles. Build your own environment in the daily environment you're working with. You can connect to different sources, and then also you can convert the objects and make sure that you have, if you retrieve data from Graph and you want to use it in Exchange Online, you can make sure that they are in the same in the proper way, in proper format, before you're using them for modifying and then using the Exchange Online version 2 module, which is actually the only module you can use actually as of today to modify it.
So there's a lot of food for thought there, because I know that there's a lot of folks who patching Exchange after all this time has been a bit of a pain. However, rewriting your scripts, it's understanding what the benefit of that is, isn't it? So there's going to be a point where some of these need to be rewritten to get the same results anyway. You're going to have to move over to those modules. But what's the sort of time savings? If you were thinking, and I guess people can interpret this down to their own size. For what are the time savings for some sort of examples that you've got?
There are actually, you have to rewrite it because it's a different endpoint, and make sure also that you follow and use the modern authentication. Don't use any basic authentication. And that's also one of the reasons for the Exchange, for the new module actually, because it's also allows you to use a certificate-based authentication, which is under the hood. It's client credential flow for retrieving an OAuth token, mirror token.
And I know how long you've been waiting for that.
Oh yeah, this is. But now at least you can automate things, and you can have things, with Power Automate and have things stored in the key vault, Azure Key Vault, so you can keep control. And
Yeah.
what is the improvement for this? Look at if you can automate things, people they can do it by themselves. You save your time because it's like a self-service. The users they're also actually they are happy because they can do it by yourself. And for the other scripts, for an admin, most of the time, when you look at scripts, I also helped a lot of other folks there in our environment to move from the basic authentication, legacy authentication to the new model, and they are all happy afterwards because it also helps for reconnecting. These little things after 1 hour timeout because you have the long running script and then it just breaks.
Yeah.
And this is time, consuming to get these failures and keep up.
And this is the thing, that there's certainly a time when, unfortunately, even admin tools that people have that would connect to Exchange Online, migration services, cloud or on-prem, and scripts as well, weird and wonderful ways of trying to securely keep the password that's going to be used in basic authentication, and a few small mitigations against that. But using basic authentication and storing a password that can be retrieved in clear text somehow, which it has to be if it was going to be passed, however great you've made sure that no one can get into to retrieve it, it's just not something you can do anymore. You couldn't do that today. No. And if you highlighted the fact that I think we've still got a script running using this, then it should be a high priority task to do something about it anyway. That we're living in a world where people are looking for Exchange vulnerabilities, and Exchange Online will doubtlessly be on the list. And if they can get into your organization, getting into your tenant, which will be your savior, should the rest of your organization be compromised, you've got to look after this. You can't do things like that anymore, can you?
No, and even so, think about even if you do, like for you as a consultant also, but we also do this in M&A activities, connecting to different tenants, to different Exchange workloads. This is now also available, and you can just use a certificate, which is stored somewhere in a key vault, so no one else can. And you can keep track on this, or you can grant only a specific person access to these to these key vaults. It's definitely more safe. You have control about it, and you can just turn it off.
Yeah. So
if something happens. Yeah.
So a lot of things for folks to really think about. So we went from speeding things up to, well, actually, if you're looking at rewriting some of your scripts, examine what you've got. Think about the way that you're doing these things as well, because it's actually going to be a wider value in just faster scripting, but also a more secure way of doing things that's going to open up opportunities that the door will be closed for you if you did things a traditional way in Exchange Online these days.
Yeah, not only Exchange Online. Think about Microsoft Graph, combine them, and Microsoft Graph, it's also, I just showed the other day our colleagues, hey, this is what it means batching in Microsoft Graph.
Yeah.
Instead of sending 10 times or 100 times a request, retrieving data for a specific user, you can just use a batch. It's one call and you get the data back.
And that's that. Yeah, it's not only the sort of parallelization or the multi-threading of those PowerShell requests is important, but it's also good point where you say not only Exchange Online, you write a script against Exchange Online that's using Graph, and you're using Graph for that. Now you've got a new skill that you can use against other services in Microsoft 365 as well.
Yeah.
Bring back some information on the channels or the chats, all sorts of things that you can do. It opens the door to really opportunities, doesn't it? Because most Exchange admins, we're not just Exchange at the moment. Sure, you do the odd bit with Teams and other technologies like that where you have to. You've got to be able to open the door to new skills that you can learn, new technologies. You're not, or rarely, you're going to be an Exchange admin for the rest of your life. Though I say that, Ingo.
Yeah, not only this, think about it. It opens the doors, as you mentioned. It's not
Yeah.
only Exchange. It's also when you look at the authentication in Azure AD,
Yeah.
service principal, application, stuff like that. In Teams, the data from SharePoint stuff.
It's all reusable. Yeah.
Yep.
Anyway, it's been lovely to have you on the podcast. When can we when can we see you at Tech then? So it's early September, September the 2nd, and
September the 2nd, yeah.
You're talking about. Do you want to give us the session title name and a bit of a description on what
manage
you're going
Exchange online at scale, correct there, and some shares, some insights, and also some topics what we just had today.
Yes, get into the details, see the magic.
More details there, yeah.
Brilliant. Thank you, Ingo. It's been a pleasure as always.
Thank you for having me. Yeah.